Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let's try this again. Apparently I did an entire video with no sound. It's like, oh, god damn it, I hate when that happens. Apparently my mic was slightly disconnected. It was kind of there, but kind of not, so it wasn't necessarily registering right. So let's try this again. Let's just try to pull this off again. Can everybody hear me? And there is nobody here to hear me, so I'll just keep going. So I'm going to do this video again. I hate doing things twice, but I kind of want to do this video because I kind of want to make a really good point. Democrats have a new strategy. God damn it. It's like doing it twice. It screws with you. You can never do it the way you want it. And I can't prove it to you guys. I can't prove it. But that last video was fucking awesome. It was an audience of one. So, yeah, it was an audience of one. Let's see. Somebody is here. Noble Brown, what's happening? What's happening? All right, so Democrats have a new strategy. They have a new strategy. Sexism. Me Too. They're on the Me Too bandwagon. Democrats have looked at this and says, okay, we need to attack Donald Trump. I know a way to attack Donald Trump. Me Too. We're with you. Al Franken. Yeah. Get. Conyers. Get. We want to be able to take the moral high ground. So we want to be able to say Donald Trump is a nasty, disgusting, sexist man. And there are a bunch of women who are in these assault allegations. And we want to stand firm beside those women as they go after the president of the United States. This is an aggravating thing for me. This is immensely aggravating for me. Now, beforehand, it's Trump and Russia. After Trump and Russia, it was Trump and Nazis. When Trump and Nazis didn't stick, they went back to Trump and Russia. And let's see, what else? There was one more. I think there was one more. But at the very least, now they've ended back up on Trump is sexist. Trump is sexist. I grant you that Trump may be sexist, but there were plenty of other presidents that were sexist, including Hillary Clinton's husband, the predator, Bill Clinton. Puts jizz on a woman's dress. I mean, come on. How undignified is that for the president of the United States to have a semen stain on somebody's dress? And this is not necessarily a defense of Trump. Trump probably is sexist, and those assault allegations, those things should work their way through courts in the way they work their way through courts. My point in this, however, is that they use this stuff to obfuscate for the main issues that matter, the issue of class. They completely use these things to obfuscate from class. It's aggravating to me. It's like the conversation that you need to have, the conversation that needs to take place, the reason why you lost the goddamn election have to do with issues of class. And you continuously hug issues of identity in order to obfuscate from those issues of class. The argument that I want to make in this video is that they're not idiots. They don't do this willy-nilly. This is not just bad strategy. There are reasons for this. The reasons for this is pretty concrete and pretty gross and disgusting. They're bribed. They're prostitutes. They're essentially getting money to do favors, and there are certain things that they can't say if they want to continue to keep that money. In the same way, when you're at work, there's certain things that you can't say. Now, I want to show you this guy. Let's see. I have to roll all of my videos back because I went through. Guys, I am so sorry about that. That's immensely embarrassing in one part, but let's see. Yeah, I have to roll my videos back. Give me 1 second. And let's see. All right. Yeah, this may not be perfect in the way that it was perfect before because, like I said, I have to roll my videos back. But I still think all right, let's try this again. All right, so the thesis of this argument ultimately boils down to issues of class are off the table because Democrats are constrained in the way that they can have conversations in politics. They're constrained by that way because issues of class would win. It is a go-to. It is easy to have this kind of populist campaign. So the question becomes, well, wait a minute. Why don't they do this? If Democrats are that interested in winning, why don't they do this? They don't do this because they're constrained in their actions based upon the allegiances, the Faustian bargains that they've made. Take a look at this guy. This guy has no neck, but him not having a neck doesn't stop him from getting on TV saying particular things. I love this video because I think this video gets to the heart of the matter of everything that's wrong with both parties. But in this case, the very specific case, the Democratic Party. Let's take a look.
Continue to say, down with the billionaires, we can't stand the rich. A lot of people want to be rich. So is it the right message that the Democrats are going with?
It's so effing wrong.
Whoa.
I've talked to Schumer. I've talked to Wyden. I've talked to Pelosi.
And said what?
And I said, if you use the term billion again, I'm done.
Why?
Because it's aspirational. I didn't start with anything. Just penalize everyone that's done well.
It's not a penalty, asshole. It's called paying your goddamn taxes. You were able to advantage yourself magnificently well off the backs and the labor and the infrastructure and everything else in this particular country. Pay your goddamn fair share. That's what it boils down to. It's not penalizing you in this sense. There are things that people need in this country, and you were able to get rich off the fruits of this country. Congratulations. Stop bitching about it. It is an amazing thing, an immensely amazing thing, and I would say amazing telling thing, where plutocrats think it's perfectly okay to come on television and say, I call these top Democrats and I told them to shut up about that class stuff. I don't want to hear you say class out of your mouth. There's something amazing about that. That's open bribery to some degree. Ultimately, this guy is a donor. I am not going to put money in your G-string. I'm not going to swipe a credit card through your ass cheeks if you bring up issues of class. Shut up. Shut up. What if those are the issues that need to be discussed? I mean, certainly politics has reasons for it being in existence. Politics is not for politics or just for the sake of politics. The idea is to get stuff done, particularly stuff that that particular society needs at that particular moment in time. You've had a plutocrat tell you to shut up about something that the country is primed for. The country is primed for. The country wants, I would argue, that the country needs. And I would say this love of Bernie Sanders that the people in this country have, to some degree, comes from the things that comes out of Sanders' mouth. Issues of class. Issues of class. This guy's class, these snarling plutocrats, all the money in the world, and want more. It's not anti-aspirational, asshole. It's called paying your goddamn taxes. It's amazing. I wasn't always rich. I wasn't always rich. So, yeah. So Democrats shut up about class. At one point, Chuck Schumer was saying he had a better deal and all this other stuff. But ultimately, these guys shut up about class, and ultimately, the line of attack now is sexism. Trump and Russia, Trump and Nazis, Trump and Russia, sexism. Sexism. Let's take a look at what Schumer had to say about this. Let's see. You tell him, Chuck. You tell him, Chuck. What about Pelosi? Let's see what Pelosi had to say.
I'm not getting in your fence. I'm not.
That was supposed to be Nancy Pelosi. Actually, Pelosi does have a comment, a real comment. Let's check Pelosi's comment.
But I have to say, we're capitalists.
There you go. There you go. We're capitalists. We're capitalists. Of course they're capitalists. They're maximizing their profits. This is what they believe in. The ideology of Republicans and Democrats, for the most part, are the same. They just believe on a certain degree of moderation. The gimmick here, the trick here, is that they consider themselves to be a quote-unquote big tent. Is that what you really want? A big tent? You have this situation with labor, and you have plutocrats. Well, if it's a big tent and the plutocrats are giving you a bunch of money, those plutocrats are going to be antagonistic towards the aims of labor. They get rich off of being able to exploit labor. Those things are in direct opposition to one another. Yes, you're going to say certain things in regards to parroting the momentum from the past, or essentially living off the reputation of past Democrats, FDR and so forth. But ultimately, the way that you lean is what Nancy Pelosi said. We're capitalists. We're capitalists. This came from her gut. We're capitalists. I want to get it out. We're capitalists. What she was responding to was a kid saying, look, the youth in this country is okay with ideas of socialism. Is that something that the Democratic Party, will you bend on some of these policies in regards to these kind of, what would be considered some of these socialist policies? We're capitalists. You just need to know we're capitalists. Yes, Nancy, I understand. You guys are capitalists. Tom Perez. I definitely want to hear what Tom Perez has to say about this.
What you don't know won't hurt you. Ignorance is bliss. The less you know, the better.
Actually, I have a real one with Tom Perez. I have a real one. This was one of the best interviews I think I've seen, at least from Chris Hayes. Tom Perez, Bernie Sanders sitting side by side. Side by side. Chris Hayes asked him a question about the way Trump points to a bad guy. Let's take a look at what takes place. Because this is, it's one of the reasons why I would say I love Bernie Sanders. But it's also one of the reasons why I despise Tom Perez. Let's take a look.
Well, listen. It was a very hopeful message. And mostly they're immigrants and other people. There's a bad guy there. There's a villain in the story. There's the
nodding their heads and they say, yeah, that's what we got to do.
Message, and it worked with people. My question is, Senator, to you, what is the pointed response to that?
Well, what I think, Chris, is that people understand that there is a reason why the middle class is shrinking and why we have 43 million people living in poverty, and why at the same time the wealthiest people in this country are doing phenomenally well. In the last 17 years, we've seen an explosion, 10 times increase in the number of billionaires. And what the American people understand, that we can't bring about the changes that we want. Healthcare for all, making public colleges and universities tuition free, transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel, unless we have the guts to point the finger at the ruling class of this country, the billionaire class, and Wall Street, and say, you know what? Your greed is destroying this country. And you know what? We're going to take you on. And I think when you make that statement, a lot of people start nodding their heads and they say, yeah, that's what we got to do.
This is what's key to me. And Tom, I want to...
I love that answer, man. I love that answer. Say what you want about Bernie Sanders. He holds his shape. And I know people are going to be like, I can't believe you said he holds his shape. In this particular case, when you're asking him, what does he believe in? Yes, he tells you exactly what he believes in. The billionaires are on our backs. We got to make public education, healthcare, these things need to be human rights, etc., etc., etc. He tells you exactly what he wants to do. You're very clear. There's no ambivalence. This is why a man calls himself a socialist. He's very clear on what he wants. Do you think Tom Perez, what do you think Tom Perez's answer is going to be? What do you think Tom Perez's answer is going to be? Bernie Sanders was very clear on what Bernie Sanders believes in, what Bernie Sanders wants to accomplish, and what Bernie Sanders wants to take place. Very clear. Chris Hayes is going to ask Tom Perez the same question. Tom Perez is representing the Democratic Party. What do you think Tom Perez is going to say? I won't leave you in suspense.
I hear you talk about this because when you talk about this, there's a bad guy there. There's a villain in the story. There are people that are doing wrong by the American people. Donald Trump has a story where he's got villains as well, and they're different folks. Sometimes they're corporations, mostly they're immigrants and other people. What is the, do you see the world that way, Tom? Is that the Democratic message? Do you think it's important, as the senator sitting next to you just said, to say the ruling class, his words, of this country, are basically screwing average folks?
Well, listen, when we put hope on the ballot, Chris, we win. When we allow our opponents to put fear on the ballot, we don't do so well. I believe that an economy has to work for everyone to be...
Hillary Clinton, no, this is my point. Hillary Clinton ran on hope.
This is a fucking amazing answer. I mean, well, first, Chris Hayes is on drugs. Hillary Clinton didn't run on hope. When they did an analysis of that campaign and her messaging, it was terror. Donald Trump is going to eat your babies. Donald Trump is going to kick your kids. Donald Trump is going to be Godzilla. He's going to stump through New York, murdering innocent civilians. Donald Trump is a maniac. Donald Trump is going to bring the destruction of America. This was the message. This was the stuff that was put out. She had people terrified. Do you know they named that book going into her campaign Shattered? Because when Hillary Clinton lost, that's the best description that they could come up with what took happen to all those Hillbots all throughout the United States. Just shattered. Just fell apart. They were terrified. They were terrified for reasons. They were terrified that they put fear on the ballot. This was not a hopeful message. It was not this hope and joy and this emancipatory moment with Hillary Clinton running in the sunshine. This was terror. The world is falling apart. Donald Trump is going to murder your babies. So, come on. Chris Hayes, I don't know what Chris Hayes is talking about. That's the first part. Second part, he asks you a straight question and your response is, we put hope on the ballot. When we put hope on the ballot, we win. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Hope. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. We put hope on the ballot. Do you understand that the guy who's sitting right beside you gave an amazing fucking answer? He was very specific and very clear on what he was talking about. And you go with the esoteric hope. When we put hope on the ballot, we win. I have no idea what that means. What he is asking you, Tom, is what do you believe in? What do you represent? Who do you represent? That is what he's fundamentally asking you. And you have no answer to that question. You have no answer. At least, very least, you can't give an honest answer. Let me let him finish his answer. Be fair to him.
She ran on hope. It was a very hopeful message. And the point is, do you have to name the enemy? That's my question. Do you have to say, these are the people that are screwing you?
Well, listen, I think you're creating a false choice, Chris. What we have to do as Democrats is to articulate very clearly that Donald Trump's vision for America is a vision for the top 1% of the 1%. It's a vision that's divisive. When he talks about the Make It in America.
No, Tom. That's not a false choice. That's not a false choice at all. And it's very mentally problematic that you believe that that's a false choice. He is very clear on who he represents. And you're sitting beside that guy. And he asks you a straight question just like he asked the other guy a straight question. That other guy answered the question extraordinarily well. And your answer is hope and pivoting to Donald Trump. He's asking you what do you represent. That's what he's fundamentally asking you, what do you represent. I would make the case that you don't represent anything. The problem is, you've considered yourself a big tent. Now, you've used this term, big tent. You know, it's just a nice colloquialism. Oh, it's kumbaya. The politics is not meant to be big tents. Ultimately, you allowed antagonistic forces in the party making this kind of Faustian bargain of taking huge amounts of cash and then doing favors for the huge amounts of cash. Understanding that if you don't do those favors, if you don't toe a particular line, if you don't talk a particular way, that you would no longer get those donations. You're bought. That's the point I'm getting at. You're bought. When they allowed plutocrats, like the no-net guy, into the party, well, you also have labor in the party. You have labor. That plutocrat makes his wealth, to some degree, off of exploiting labor. You can't have it both ways. You need to pick a pony. In this situation, you talk a particular way towards labor while at the same time catering to the things of that plutocrat. When they pulled up votes over the course of X amount of time and they looked at what the public wanted versus the policies that were espoused, what the public wanted amounted to statistical noise. Ultimately, what took place were the people who were paying the politicians. Plutocrats. There are certain things that they can't say. There's certain things that they're being constrained on, certain policies that they can't espouse. They have to constrain their perspective, the things that they can say and talk about, to a very narrow bandwidth. Tom Perez, in no way, could say that the plutocrats are on our back and the ruling class and everything else, because those plutocrats, just like the guy with no net, would shut their wallets tight. Shut their wallets. Tom Perez is on a leash. That's what it boils down to. So, yes, Bernie Sanders can say whatever he wants. Bernie Sanders' power base allows him to... Power base. I need to explain that. There's something that I want to say and I can't remember what it is. But each person, nobody gets to power on their own. Doesn't exist in that way. Nobody just rises to power without somebody being under him to essentially push him up and propel him that way. Bernie Sanders' power base is essentially the people who gave him all that money, us, tiny donations, building up to the point of him being Bernie Sanders, jumping around the country in this way. Who do you think Tom Perez gets his cash from? Who do you think Tom Perez gets his cash from? And just like anybody else who's being bought and paid, those people toe the line of the people who are buying them. Tom Perez in no way can talk about class. That is not a conversation that's on the table. And just like Clobber, I would imagine there were other rich fucks who have all the money in the world, who is not satisfied with having all the money in the world, who are in the wrong party. And by buying the Democratic Party, is able to influence what takes place in this party. And this is immensely problematic, by the way. The Republicans are bought. Fair enough. That's who they represent. That's who they, for the most part, always represented. But the Democrats were supposed to represent labor. Labor, the 99%, those are the things that the Democratic Party were supposed to represent. Can you in honest, good conscience say they represent those things? He's sitting right beside Bernie Sanders, and Bernie Sanders is clearly telling him what he believes in. And Tom Perez asks the same question. He's talking about hope and his goddamn values. Nobody knows what those things are. I don't know what those esoteric things are. He's asking you brass tacks, what do you believe in? And you can't answer the question. You can't answer the question. You don't believe in anything. You're bought. You're bought. The Democratic Party has this thing where these people are giving them cash. They lean in a particular way and talk another way. Apathy is the best that labor gets. Labor mistakes apathy as being something awesome because the other party is actively out to get them. So it's in the same way that it's almost like the left is held hostage by the Democratic Party because of how rapacious and insane the Republican Party is. The left has allowed things to drift to this degree, though. This is not just the Republican Party just ended up that far over that side. This is some kind of political gimmick in a way. They're batshit crazy. The Democrats are slightly more moderate, but at the same token taking money from the same plutocrats that are paying the Republicans. And the game goes on and on and on. The issue that needs to be discussed is class. Tom Perez, representing Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, were capitalists. None of these guys could ever have that conversation. That's my main point. That is the thrust of my main point. And ultimately, you're in a situation where you have the Democratic Party is competing against the Republican Party. The Republican Party has tried to pass Trump Care, which was going to gut health care for millions of Americans while giving plutocrats a tax cut they didn't need. You have this bill, this $1.5 trillion bill that's going to put $1.5 trillion in the backs of regular people raising taxes on some of the middle class in order to pay for tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. This is your Republican Party. One of the Republican members came out and said, don't call me until you get that tax bill done. 60% of that is going to go to the top 1%. Don't call me until you give me my tax cuts. I've invested in you. We've invested in you. And it's time for you to pay us back. Give us our tax cuts. Give us our tax cuts. Get that shit passed. Get it passed. At this period where the Republican Party is literally getting all of their wet dreams in the sense of fucking over the workers and the poor and everybody else, even going so far as to have the irony of getting the poor to help pay for the richest tax cuts. It's fucking amazing. It's fucking amazing. The point I'm getting at is you have the worst face of the capitalistic system. And the conversation that the Democrats are having is Trump and Russia, Trump and Nazis, and now Trump is sexist. Oh, also Bernie Sanders was physically dismissive of Jane, so Bernie Sanders is also somewhat sexist. This stuff, I haven't even gotten to the Bernie Sanders part. I'm just focusing purely on this sexism thing. It completely obfuscates from issues that needs to be discussed, issues of class. And I'm saying that the reason they're not discussing these issues of class is because these issues of class directly affect their donors. Directly affects their donors. They're constrained by cash. They're completely constrained and bought by cash. Do you understand if a plutocrat to come out and say, I'm telling you to do this, or unless you're not getting paid? What is a bribe? This is the definition of a bribe. I'm paying you to not talk about something that the constituents of this country, the 320 odd million people in this country, needs to be discussed. But me, the top 1%, is saying don't do it, or otherwise you're not going to pay you. It's fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. Back during the election, when Hillary Clinton lost the election, Hillary Clinton got one phone call after the next. Each person, for the most part, telling her somewhat of the same thing. I'm sorry you lost to reality shows. I'm sorry, it hurts. I know it burns. I know it hurts. And you can imagine if you're getting this call for 24 hours, I'm sorry you lost reality shows. It sucks that you lost reality shows. Oh my God, I can't believe that you lost reality shows. You get that for 24 hours. And she comes back out and says, you know what? I didn't lose to reality show hosts. I am Hillary Clinton. I am fucking blameless. What took place was Comey and Russia. It was Russia and Comey. I need you to make that shit stick. And her media team went out and screamed it at the top of their lungs. Democrats joined in on the chorus because Democrats were embarrassed that they lost to reality show hosts, and they didn't necessarily want to own up to this idea that their paradigm of the world could be wrong. They didn't want to own up to that. So they didn't own up to that. They said Trump and Russia, and there had to be something between Trump and Russia, even though they had no evidence to make the connection at all between Trump and Russia. Zero. FBI never even looked at their computers. And yet, that's the narrative that they went with. Now, the catch with this is, when they actually did research on this, there was no way for that information to be shipped over that fast unless it was downloaded, meaning it wasn't a hack. It was leaked. There's a massive difference in those things. The media has consistently put out one story after the next with Trump and Russia and has consistently been proven wrong on those stories. Those stories have come out to be lies. Joy Behar screaming at the top of her lungs, oh my God, we're going to impeach the president! Yes! I've never seen anyone that happy in my life. And ultimately what she was happy about was the president of the United States potentially being impeached. The point I'm getting at here is, if the Democrats want to make a stink about something, they can make a stink about something by screaming at the top of their lungs in the same way they've screamed Russia at the top of their lungs. The media has been complicit in this because they looked at it from a profit motive standpoint of, hey, this looks great if the president gets taken down on this kind of Russia gate thing. But no, we don't have anything else to tie these things together. At some point, the NSA, the FBI, and CIA became the word of God, meaning everything that they say, for the most part, the media just prints it as if it's completely and factually true, because those organizations have never in their life lied. This has been the media circus that we've been under for the past X amount of time. They've used this stuff to obfuscate from the actual issues of economics. And yes, they have a winning message with economics. No, nobody's going to trust them right away when they have that particular message. But you would imagine that the way that you run against somebody who's trying to rape the public in the way that he's trying to rape the public, that the conversation, naturally, free-flowing, will be about class. And if we're not having that conversation, I have to ask the question of why aren't the Democrats having that particular conversation? And does it have anything to do with their donors telling them to shut the fuck up about class? Personally, I suspect that's true. Look, I look at this as anything that takes place from the left. Just the way it is. The women's movements, progressive movements in regards to workers, LGBTQ, civil rights, all of those things have taken place from vehicles on the left. Do you honestly believe that what takes place as the Democratic Party right now is in any way capable of providing a vehicle for any issue that threatens this country or this particular civilization as a whole? Climate change. The new data out saying it's worse than what they thought it was, or at the very least is going for the worst case projections. Again, that's driven purely by gas and oil production in addition to animal agriculture. 40% of the extinctions that have taken place in this world have taken place over the last 40 years. That is an amazing number. That is an amazing number. The amount of plastic that's in our oceans. If you want to talk about the way that jobs are being exported overseas or automation's taken over, and in no way are conversations being had on, wait a minute, what are we going to do when there is no way enough jobs to compensate for the number of people? And I would make a case that we're already there. You have an economic situation where, what, 60% of the people in this country, if they got a bill for $500, couldn't afford to pay it. The UN just put out this question of, why are there people, 41 million people in the United States, living in third world conditions? Class is the issue. That's the conversation that needs to be had. That is the conversation that won Trump the election, and that is the conversation that is supposed to be in the Democrats' wheelhouse. And it is sad and pathetic when these no-net people have you by the balls, where you can't actually have the conversations that are supposed to represent the people who you want to vote for you. It's fucking amazing. It's fucking amazing. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to bitch and moan, and this has gone on for way too long. I think whoever came back, I totally thankful whoever came back, and I'm sorry for the first one. Sorry for the first one. All right, let's see. Oh, James Manna Talk. You're using your magnifying third party or revolt. Are you using your magnifying third party or revolt? Thanks, James. I appreciate it. Oh, what's this? Alice Motter. Here's some hope for Jamal's ballot per Richard Wolff. Bernie running in 2020. Fuck the DNC, but the man still gets my vote, and that is where I am too. That is where I am too. Hell yes, that's where I am too. I love that clip, like the one at the Tom Perez one, man, because I think that gets across this thing of, this is where these people stand, and Bernie Sanders just sitting right there by Tom Perez just makes him look so weak and feckless and meaningless. What is your meaning? If the Democratic Party is supposed to be the leftist party in this country, and this guy is very clear on what he represents, he doesn't shut up about it. You ask him anything. What time of day is it? We need to get the billionaires off our back. Foaming at the mouth socialists. And they ask you, and you're the squeamish, squishy, whatever. Nobody knows what you... They continuously ask you what you are. Do you understand that? Each and every question, when they're asking you questions like this, what they're trying to get at is, what do you represent? What do you represent? And in the very act of you trying to explain what you represent, you say what you represent, even though I don't think it's the thing that you think you're getting across. You can't say what you represent because everyone knows what you represent. Those people with the no necks that buy you, that's what you represent. You can't say that. But legislatively, ultimately, yes. Ultimately, yes. Let's see. Jamal, we're just glad you're back. Oh, Clyde Illusion, thank you. My lip reading was a little off. Hey, you, hi. Yeah. The last one was better. Have you, there's a, oh, what is their name? What is their name? They have this thing called the greatest song you've ever heard, or the greatest song ever. I can't think of his name. I can't think of his name. The song is fucking amazing. They're having this sing-off against the devil, and they win the sing-off. And they're like, that was the greatest song that was ever written. Too bad we didn't get it written down. This is a tribute to that greatest song that's ever written. Oh, man, that video is hilarious. And that's kind of where it was like, yeah, the other one was better. But the first one is always better. The first take is always better. Most of the time it is. Most of the time. Clyde Illusion. Yes, Jamal. They use an identity politics and rarely talk about class. They never talk about class. Class is off the table. That plutocrat who's snarling, that right there. Shut up about that class talk. Shut up about that class talk. That's essentially where that's going. Barbara Marissa. Yes, Mr. Mayor. This man has no neck. John Carpenter. JT, this billionaire is saying what slave owners used to say. He doesn't want to talk about issues of class, status, or power. Yeah, it makes him squeamish and uncomfortable. Oh, I don't want them talking about my class. We don't want to talk about class. Class is issues you talk about, and you shouldn't support any Democrat that's not willing to have that conversation. That's my position anyway. Because otherwise, they're yeah. Yeah, they're not representing their interests. Try to hold it in when you deliver the jokes. Oh, right. That's what. Bob Ramirez, so it looks like TYT footage to me. Which one? Nah, I don't think any of that is TYT footage. Yeah, I don't think any of that is TYT footage. The real donkey will be better politicians than the Democrats. Tay Ray 88. That screaming donkey, man, I bet he has some good ass policies. I agree. Bob Ramirez, a big tent, still thinking about Bernie, I guess. Hands above the table there, Jamal. Oh, they're joking my love of Sanders. Alice Motter, disagree, D. He exposes how bad they are. Let's see, what did D. Martin say? Bernie's presence there enables and it legitimizes these idiots. All right, so yes or no, both of those things are true. You're both right. It exposes them just by... Look, I think when Tom Perez is standing beside Bernie Sanders, that's what he wants, Bob. I agree with you. He wants some legitimacy on this way. People love Bernie Sanders. They think I'm a disgusting human being. I just got shit on by a bird. God doesn't like me. At the very least, standing beside Bernie Sanders, I can leverage his likability to put some light on me. So yeah, Bob, I agree. The problem is there is a difference in those quantities. When one guy opens his mouth, he's very clear on what he wants. When the other guy, not so much. And it makes a clear distinction between these two things. That interview with Chris Hayes, I know Tom Perez wanted to be sitting beside Bernie Sanders, but that did not do him any good. That looked miserable. That looked extremely miserable. Imagine the ridiculousness of being asked a straight question, and your answer to a political question is hope. We put hope on the ballot, Chris. We put hope on the ballot. I lead with my values. Okay, what are your values, Tom? What are your values? They asked Tom about healthcare. He says, well, I believe everybody should have healthcare. That's not what we fucking asked you, Tom. That's not what he asked you. This squishy guy, I can't stand his ass. He's a sniveling asshole. Absolutely sniveling asshole. It's like, what do you represent? And at no point can Tom Perez give an answer on what he fucking represents. And yet he's the head of the DNC. It's fucking insane. Absolutely insane. Brom SL1, put hope on the ballot. What the fuck is right? Chris Bailey, fuck hope, Tom. Fuck hope is right. Brom SL1, Hillary's campaign was powered by fracking and fear of Donald Trump. Right. One of the guys on Jon Stewart, they had this joke that Obama ran his campaign on hope and $1 billion. That's pretty much. Titus, hope. I have a solid bowel movement. Yeah, hope. All sorts of hope. John Carpenter, Democrats can run against Trump or corporatism, not both. Democrats can run against Trump or corporatism, not both. But that's just it. Both of them represent, I mean, they look at the world as being the exact same thing. Like the Republicans and Democrats, they agree on the world the way it is, if that makes sense. This is the boundaries of the world. That's the way they look at these things. When class is off the table, this is the boundaries of the world. Rape the little, rape the lot. From the standpoint of labor and blacks and all these other groups, for the most part, apathy is taking the place of having any real advocate on your side and your issues. So yeah, hope on the ballot, my ass. Not in hope. They create a false boundary. They're creating a false boundary just because they're bought and paid for. A wise man among fools is but a fool himself. D. Martin. James Wilkerson. What Bernie says sitting alongside him tells it all. But that's just it. It creates a clear distinction between those things. That's all I'm saying. You ask one guy a question. Hey, what's 4 plus 4? The guy says 8. You ask somebody else a question. He's like, I think you're asking me a false question, man. What are numbers anyway? I mean, does numbers really exist? I mean, numbers don't really exist. I mean, I don't necessarily like to be pinned down on any particular number thing. I'm not even sure I believe in numbers. There's a difference in those things. There's a massive difference in those things. Alice Motter. Bernie backed off thinking Trump was the greatest evil. I didn't agree with him, but I have to admit it helped him gain support. Yeah, I think he was terrified of Donald Trump. But I gotta be wrong, right? I'm being honest. I'm terrified of Donald Trump. I think he's a fucking maniac. But I think any Republican that would be in that office would be a maniac. Like, the media treats Republicans as if they're this kind of, you know, this regular political party. These guys are off the fucking political spectrum. I mean, come on. Come on. Yeah, any Republican that took that office would be terrifying. Crozet Isles. America's a capitalist wet dream, brainwashed mass that fails to see class, so never calls anyone on it. Yes, that's amazing to me. That's amazing to me. The most natural thing in the world is, let's make our economic situation better. I don't understand that one. Like, I don't understand why the public looks at that and says, no. If they understood what Western countries had, it's amazing. They have been brainwashed into a certain ideology of things that the world has to be a particular way. It's amazing. They don't see it. Yeah, they don't see it. They don't see it at all. The beauty of Sanders is that he put the shit on the ballot for the first time in my lifetime. First time in my lifetime. James Wilson. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming to get us. The Russians are coming to get us. Shirley Vick, and they still do not have any evidence. No, they don't have any evidence. And think about the ridiculousness of this. We just toppled a fucking government. Iraq was within my lifetime. I mean, it's not like it wasn't that long ago. We've just toppled the government. We've aided in the toppling of Honduras. We've aided in the toppling of one government after the next. Guatemala, Congo, Iran. One government after the next. They're making this argument that Russia leaked information, true and factual information, showing that the Democratic Party cheated one of the other candidates in the primary, not to mention a host of corruption in regards to the Clinton Foundation. Even if it was Russia, I don't care. We've done some nasty shit around the globe, and you're pissing a fit because somebody might have hacked your thing. And in no way do I believe it was Russia. I'm just making the point that even at their worst case scenario, if they're right, what they're talking about is still BS. That's what I'm getting at. We're angry that you cheated us, showing that we cheated another candidate. Think of the ridiculousness of that argument. It's a fucking amazing argument. Absolutely amazing argument. So yeah, they still don't have any evidence on it. And I don't think they screened it. I mean, they handpicked their NSA guys in order to look at it, and then they gave an opinion. They gave an opinion. They didn't have an investigation. They gave an opinion. And the media has been screaming about this for the past year. Here's a question. Do you think the media will ever come on and say, oh, we're sorry, we fucked up. There was no evidence here? And do you believe that the longer this goes on, the less of an impetus they have to do that, meaning they need to protect their reputation, so they're just going to keep on going, saying, the media has never lied. The media, we don't lie on purpose. We don't do that. We don't do that. You're lying now, dude. You're lying now. You've been lying for a year. You guys had no evidence. You had nothing to put in order to put Trump in Russia in a sense. And then they've expanded it to WikiLeaks, saying that WikiLeaks is some arm of the Russian government. These people are fucking maniacs. They're insane. They're insane. They're looking for anything to try to connect Trump to Russia because they realize that story is BS. And they've been lying for the course of a year. It's fucking amazing. Absolutely amazing. No, they don't have any evidence. Bob Ramirez says, long as sheep listen to the toothless, yipping sheepdog said, oh, we're headed for disaster. Oh, Bob. Cloud illusion. Mainstream media keeps spewing identity politics. Yeah, part of that, though, is because Democrats spew identity politics. At the point where you hug identity to the exclusion of everything else, because having the actual conversation about class hurts the people who you're actually representing, then yeah, the only thing you have is identity. I'm going to hug identity. I'm going to call everybody sexist and racist and bigots and all this other stuff. Yes, there are sexist and racist and bigots on the other side, but not everybody who dislikes you is sexist and racist and a bigot. There's a difference in those things. Anna, go to launder JT's audio through Assange. What? What? Oh, is my audio down? My audio down? My audio is not down. Make sure, because I gotta be honest, I didn't check it. Okay, my audio is up. Don't scare me like that, Anna. Let's see. Drunken master. Chomsky says the rest of the world's laughing at them when they scream about election interference. Much of the rest of the world has seen American democracy firsthand. Yeah, of course. I mean, people aren't idiots around the globe. People understand that stuff, what goes on. Do you understand that when the United States made certain promises to the Soviet Union when the Soviet Union went bust, one of those promises, we wouldn't expand NATO and wouldn't necessarily take advantage of Russian economy when they're trying to unravel this kind of communist system. They didn't keep any of those promises. They expanded NATO up to the border, and then they turned around and profited off of Russia's essentially collapse. You had millions of people die when Russia kind of went belly up. They put Boris Yeltsin was running against the communists, and then Bill Clinton and the United States essentially poured resources into helping Boris Yeltsin keep power. Boris Yeltsin was a drunk. They lighted that drunk in office. Gorbachev, who's seen as a hero in the United States, is not seen that way in Russia. It's not seen that way in Russia. He's seen as a person who allowed capitalist system to rape their country. That's what they're seen as. All those people died. It is fucking insane for the United States to make this argument that Russia is somehow an enemy and a threat. Do you realize that the amount of money, they upped our military budget by $80 billion? Bernie Sanders wanted people to be able to go to school for less than $80 billion, including giving relief for the people who needed money for student aid. They couldn't pay that money to the people in this country itself. What they could pay that money for is giving this kind of corporate welfare to the military-industrial complex, and gave all this additional money to the military. Do you know how much Russia spent on their military in total? $60 billion. We spent more money as an addendum to the already bloated military budget than they spent in their entire military budget. Issues of class get pushed under the table for shit like this. For shit like this. This is chum bait. Absolute chum bait. Shirley Vick, I believe the former Intel whistleblowers about the Russiagate is not true, only to promote war. Agreed. Yeah, I think it's just to promote war. It's like, how do you justify spending $1 trillion on a military budget? You're hunting people in caves. You're buying fucking submarines and you're hunting people in caves. It's like, what? Usually after war, we draw down. At some point, somebody said, hey, if we pay politicians, those politicians can do policies that we ourselves like. And we can essentially pay them, and they give us a kickback in regards to contracts for the military, etc., etc., etc. So now we can have this corporate welfare for the military where we're building bombs and boats and ships and everything else. We're letting our infrastructure crumble. We're letting people suffer. But we're killing people abroad. So every bullet that we expend murdering somebody abroad is essentially another bullet that we can produce and that needs to be replaced. Every bomb that we drop is a bomb that needs to be replaced. Every plane that's hit, every plane that has wear and tear, those are things that need to be replaced. Hell, even if they don't need to be replaced, give them money anyway. Give them money anyway. Your military is a jobs program. They don't call it a jobs program, but ultimately it's just a jobs program. It's a gross jobs program because that instrument is being used to murder and kill and terrorize people abroad. But that's all it is. Cut that thing in half. Put those people to work in the country itself using the government to create jobs. That's what you should do. Tomosi Young, it's a perfect scheme. Less educated workforce in the United States ruling class get to hire offshore people for cheap. America. Matt West, I mean, let's be honest. It's a contractual handout. We could do the same stuff with infrastructure or green energy, but we don't because no one gives a shit. Yes, my hope is that that changes with the new people who are going in office. Alice Motor, Crozet is also being used as our jobs program. Oh, it's also being used as our jobs program. And Jamal says it as I type. That's funny. James Wilson, Adbuster said that economists must learn to subtract. Maryland, military equals the only job in town. Yeah, seems to be, right? Anna, sad but true, Maryland. Yes, it is sad but true. Whack Cackle, we could have functional roads, bridges, and train systems. You'd think it's small. Train systems, high-speed rail, hyperloops. People don't realize this, but money is a hindrance to progress. It's not. Like, the thing that you have access to are resources. The problem is the money is the intermediary between those things, between those resources and actually putting those resources to use for humanity. The question always becomes, how do you get those people to interact with those resources to create things if you don't pay those people? I would make the point that you can come up with a society that's more sustainable, that allows you to produce the things that you need in your society to make sure each and every person has all the things that they need. No, you're not going to have ridiculous trinkets, and no, you're not going to have people with $1 billion. But you don't need people with $1 billion. What the fuck do you need people with $1 billion for? Like, come on. Your society should not be arranged in a way where one person or a few people advantage themselves at the expense of everybody else. I don't quite understand why people accept that. Don't understand why they accept that at all. Come up with a system that allows... An argument can be made that when society was coming up and there weren't enough resources and technology couldn't keep up, etc., 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 that you had this kind of jungle approach to things. But at a certain point, when do people grow up and say, hey, how do we want to conform society in a way that advantages everybody else? And that question fundamentally boils down to, what do you believe and what do you care about more than anything else? I don't want poverty in my society. I don't think people need to suffer in the way that they suffer. And if you ask the question of, do we have the resources to provide for each and every person, that answer is yes. If that answer is yes, then everything else becomes a choice. Choose the society you want. God is not forcing this. The money has been decayed over the last 105 years to disable the wealth of the entire country. Cackle. Titus. Lee Wonka, the $33 trillion man, is ready to build high-speed rail right now, but the government would not give back his money. Crozet Ills. A very efficient jobs program, more like a corporate welfare, Alice Motor, slow internet connection. Look, if there was one thing that I would make a focus on, it's get rid of poverty. Like, when you have issues of poverty, you get issues of crime, you get issues of public health, like a degrade in public health. My problem with the Democratic Party is that they don't actually represent the left. They're like the Conservative Party in London and the UK. They're worse than the Conservative Party in the UK. They're they're a right-wing party. And when he's standing beside Bernie Sanders, who's just a classic Democrat, it's just that they move so far to the right that when Tom Perez is sitting beside somebody who's just an actual Democrat, he looks fucking insane and ridiculous. He looks insane and ridiculous because he is ridiculous. I think he is ridiculous. I think the second version is better with sound. Yes, Noble Brown, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's absolutely true. Tomosi Young, speaking of which, who's ready to pay more for interweb access? Fuck Pack. Yeah. Obama put that guy up. He might not have made him the FCC chair, but why are you going to put him on the thing in the first place? I don't understand this. It's like you're going to your banker buddies and all this other stuff. This is kind of my point. What do you represent? Who do you represent? Fuck this idea of compromise. Who do you represent? Have a bias. My bias is towards workers. My bias is towards the 99%. That's my bias. I have a humanistic point of view of the world. That is my bias. Who do you represent, Tom Perez? With this understanding that there's no way. Fuck the Big Tent. There is no Big Tent. You make a choice. Each thing that you do, you make a choice with regards to who you represent. And I would make this argument that the fact that you can't even say it, is in fact saying it. The very act of not being able to articulate who you are is the very thing that's articulating who you are. You saw the look on Bernie Sanders' face. I mean, Bernie Sanders was like, this hurts. This hurts. Yeah, Bernie was in pain on that one. By the way, thank you, Barack Obama, for that shit pie. Yes. Thanks. Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Obama. I'm amazed that people are blaming this on, like, yes, Trump has a hand in this. Trump made the guy the head of this chair. But why was he there in the first place? Like, why was he there? Why was the guy there? You're Obama and you get the opportunity to make a choice and you're waxing and waning like, I'm going to help the conservatives. Fuck that. They're not going to do the same thing for you. It's politics. Understand the situation that you're presented with. Why are you putting that maniac on the thing if you cared about net neutrality? You can't have it both ways, man. Can't have it both ways. You can't do shit that adversely affects the people who you say you represent. When you get in office, and labor helps you get in office, and you're supposed to pass the employee free choice, which would allow the easier use or easier creation of unions, and you pass on it. Scott Walker destroys the unions in Wisconsin, and you sit idly by. Nobody said squat. The Democratic Party could scream at the top of their lungs about Russia, get the press to pay attention. They're destroying unions. Unions are supposed to be your wheelhouse, and you guys stand by idly. Just saying. Unions need to get to the point of getting a party that represents their interests full-throatedly. That's all I'm saying. In the UK, and I know I'm talking about the UK a lot. I've been following their politics in regards to the show. They have that advocate. They have Jeremy Corbyn. Jeremy Corbyn espouses the issues associated with unions and workers and so forth. There's nothing like that in the United States. There is no party that represents labor in the United States. The best that labor gets, the best that African Americans gets, the best that Hispanics get, the best that you get from Democrats are apathy. And you've mistaken apathy for this kind of affirmative support. It's not. It's not. It's just apathy. You have a comparative difference. The other guys are rabid maniacs. So you look at them and say, I love apathy. Apathy is much better than being rabid maniacs. But why are you settling with apathy? And shouldn't you get to the point of saying, I actually want something to represent my interests? They're taking you for granted because you're allowing yourself to be taken for granted. This is the point I'm getting at. That's all. I'm aggravated by the thing that they've come up with, this idea of sex. Me too. Me too. There's just something degrading about it. It's like a political leech. It's not so much that these guys have this kind of real integrity and honesty and all this other stuff. It's, we're going to find a way to attack Donald Trump, and we can latch on to Me Too in order to attack Donald Trump. We're part of the resistance. We're the resistance. With the Democratic Party. Fucking worthless. Absolutely worthless. Jeremy Chase, Obama even admitted to being a moderate Republican. I saw that. I did see that clip. Yeah. He said if it were back and so forth, I'd be a moderate Republican. Yes, yes. That's not something to be proud of. Obama is center-right for certain. The spectrum is out of whack right now. The spectrum is way out of whack. Way out of whack. And the sad part is the media talks about this stuff as if these guys are on the political spectrum. These guys are fucking maniacs. These guys are maniacs. My dad, one of the few things that my dad ever did with me was playing Pac-Man. I used to love that game. I could put 150,000 on the board. He could put just ungodly numbers, like 500,000, some ridiculous amount of points, and would sit there and play that game for hours, like 6-7 hours at a time. He found a gimmick in the game where he could put Pac-Man in a spot and leave, and they could never touch him. He could go for hours and come back, and the ghost is still running around the screen, never being able to touch him. He found a trick in the system, a gimmick, something that would allow him to advantage himself in the system. When he needed to go somewhere else, he would get tired. Democrats have also found this gimmick. By shifting the country to the right, they've created a rabid group of Republicans. By having only a two-party system, that rabid group of Republicans creates an impetus for people to vote Democrat, even if those people don't want to vote Democrat. It's putting a gun to the country's head. This has become a political gimmick of sorts, in the same way that my dad has that gimmick in Pac-Man. Put a gun to the country's head, say we're more moderate. Those people are going to fucking maniacs. We're less maniacs. But we do agree on the world the way it is. So we're not going to fuck you as bad. But just based on comparative difference, you would think that in some way we are better. We're still paid for by the same people. You would think that we're better. This is a gimmick, man. That game needs to be broken by being willing to let those people fail. The more that they fail, the better off that they are, because it creates a certain amount of tension that gets the change that's necessary, at the very least for that party, or at the very least allows that party to implode and something else to spring up. As it is now, it is worthless. Bought. Completely bought. Kristen Gillibrand is the next Obama. You know, that's part of the reason why they're using sex in this way. The whole reason why they're using Donald Trump and the blowing up the tweet. Donald Trump said, you know, like she would come on her knees or something like that. Yeah, all this stuff is just, all of this is the same playbook. they're bringing up sex. They're using sex as a weapon. They're going to use the women that Donald Trump has, the abuse thing. They're going to run a woman against them. They're going to say that, well, a woman is needed. Bernie Sanders is sexist and Donald Trump is sexist and we need a woman in the White House, etc., etc., etc. They're lining up for this attack. They're lining up for this attack. Part of the reason why they got rid of Franken and the other guy was they wanted the quote-unquote moral high ground to be able to attack Trump on this front. This is stupid. This is profoundly stupid. And yeah, they're willing to lose on some stupid thing like this as opposed to using the actual issue that matters and the actual issue that contests Republican policy. Economics. That's sad and pathetic. You're the Democratic Party, and in no way can you bring up this idea of economics. That is sad and pathetic. It really is. Just being fucking bought. Kamala Harris is the next Obama. Yeah, what it read in economics that they're going to have a black gay woman in a wheelchair with one leg and running for president. They're clinging to Obama for that much. Does anyone actually believe that voting machines are legit? No, I don't. What's the portion worrying about politics? Oh, what's the point of worrying about politics when the door of democracy has been slammed shut and sealed? One of the things I would say would be lefties need to support election reform. Corruption is a big fucking deal, and it's one of those things that the right wing also agrees with you on. No, they don't agree with you on a reason for reasons of integrity, nothing like that. But at the very least, confronting this thing of the majority of the country, or a large section of the country, doesn't trust the voting apparatus. Meaning there can never be legitimacy to any particular candidate when you don't necessarily trust the apparatus that that candidate got elected on. Yeah, you need to fix that process. Hand-counted ballots with the public watching them count that ballot with an automatic recount if one of the candidates won it. Stop fucking around with the voting thing where somebody wants a recount and you're trying to charge them $20 million in order to prevent them from getting a recount. What is the point to just get elected, or is the point to actually choose the person that the public wanted? Unfortunately, this country uses politics for the sake of politics. It's not what the country wants. It's just what they want to get elected. The country allows it, and so things just go on. So yeah. Skip Rock. Both Christian Gillibrand and Kamala Harris have man hands. What the fuck? What? Honor 3. I've been frustrated with Bernie too. I get it, but sometimes it's a bit overboard. Yeah, they go a little bit overboard. Crozet Owls. Harris will be sunk by her pass on Steve Mnuchin. Maybe. Maybe. She will be attacked on that front. But this is precisely my point. Can't go after plutocrats if for the most part you yourself are in bed with plutocrats. Their range of debate is constrained. Yeah, agreed. After Alabama, Wolf Blitzer used the exit polling in the same sentence. Did he now? We need another FDR, damn it. Shirley Vick. I agree, Shirley. I agree. All right, here's Bob the Senate. What's with the Bernie love? How many times does he have to knock you down, kick you in the kidneys, and give you the finger? He's never done that, Bob. Not to me anyway. Well, voting for Hillary Clinton hurt, but I think that's a little bit different than kicking me in the kidneys. Maybe I'm biased on this. Maybe I'm biased on this. If Bernie runs, Bernie's getting my vote. That's what it boils down to. The Posh Scouser. JT, if you like Corbyn, just wait for Gallows to get back into labor. So I know Galloway also. I've been following some of his videos. If I'm not mistaken, I'm subscribed to his channel. That is a fiery guy, man. That is a fiery guy. I love it. Matt West, we need a government and a Democratic Party that supports openly poor people, workers, cooperatives, progressive tax policies, universal health care, higher education. Agreed, agreed, agreed. Matt West, agreed. Agreed. Tomosi Young, Wolfie B. Lizard, love that daft Doughty doofus. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Blitzer. Blitzer. I love it. Democrats have lost so much influence over the country, they had to call in arms in 2016. They had to call to arms. Yeah, they had to call to arms in 2016. The voters didn't show up. The voters lost trust, man. I mean, you have somebody who comes out screaming at the top of his lungs about hope and change. And he's just a Bush light. He's Bush light. He's for the most part a Republican light. So that's not hope and change. That totally guts what the public felt in regards to the Democratic Party. And It's like, how can you trust them at that point? Not to mention, you go through a whole campaign where they cheated one of the candidates, lied profusely about the cheating of the candidates, and then call everybody sexist when they didn't necessarily vote for Hillary Clinton. Yeah, it's fucking insane. We need automatic voter registration led Social Security so Republicans be sure that only citizens are voting and make sure no one is kicked off the rolls. It also means no party registration. Tabitha Enriquez, yes, you're right, but Republicans are not going to do that. Republicans don't want everybody to be able to vote, so they want to be able to fuck around with the voting apparatus to keep people out of the voting thing. They understand that their influence in the voting thing goes up the less people who vote. They would never go for the Social Security thing. It has nothing to do with reality. It has everything to do with them getting people in office. So I agree with you, Tabitha. Yeah, in a government that worked, yes, you're right. You're right. Pop reality. Republicans are the gun itself. No, Democrats are the trigger finger. You can't blame the gun for being what it's created to be, money and politics, and the consciousness behind the trigger finger. Agreed. Agreed. Pop reality, I agree. I absolutely agree. Fuck it, eh? Shirley Vick, Jamal Thomas, you should interview Randy Credo. He's a radio host and activist and was requested to testify in front of the Congress. Jimmy Dore interviewed. He's great. So I saw that interview with Jimmy Dore. I got to be honest. I didn't know who Randy Credo was. I don't know who he is. I saw him. And yeah, Credico, right. And yeah, I do remember them asking him to testify before Congress. He said he wasn't going to do it, or he pleaded a fifth. At this point, he's waiting to hear back on what Congress is going to respond, but they didn't necessarily say he needed to be there if he's going to plead the fifth. That's fascinating. It's fascinating. What Roger Stone said, he was his contact. Credico was his contact between Julian Assange. He pulled him into it in Congress. It's now in this ridiculous witch hunt. This is fucking amazing. It's like a red scare, but it's like a weak red scare. It's like they can't muster up and they can't get necessarily the country involved in the red scare, so they have their own little echo chambers about this, this stuff. It's fucking amazing. Public is not on their side with this. It really is not. He's been a huge supporter of WikiLeaks, I think. Everybody should be a huge supporter of WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is fucking amazing. I think the mainstream media is just using the Russia DNC hack to distract us from cleaning up the corrupt DNC. Come next year, the DNC may still be just as corrupt. Yes, they are. They are. Call it what it is. They are. I mean, Nomi Kantz keeps talking about the money and everything else. Yes, it's the money, but also you understand those politicians are also getting money. They're getting bribed. Like, you're cleaning up the DNC and you're talking about boarding the ship. What about the people being bribed in regards to the politicians themselves? What about the people being bribed? So yeah, I love WikiLeaks. The fuchsia scare. Yeah, James, right. The fuchsia scare. They can't get to the red. They can't get to the red scare. People are like, what the fuck ever, man. Yeah. I think most people understand that they're using this to obfuscate from their own failures. Failed at a massive fucking level. Sink the ship. We need something else. We need something else. There needs to be a third party. There needs to be something else that's credible and viable that can take the place of the Democratic Party. They in no way represent workers. I'm sorry, they don't. And yes, I understand apathy is better than, people being antagonistic towards you, like openly, explicitly antagonistic towards you. But at some point, you have to accept that your apathy, or accepting the apathy, has moved the ball further and further to the right and has put you in a worse scenario year after year after year. When do you say no? When do you say no? It's not that it's the easiest thing in the world. It's just as necessary. There's a difference in those things. Jamal Thomas, what are your favorite big crazy ideas for changing the world right now? Entire world? Or just the United States? If I was just being an outright utopian on this, I don't know. I gotta be honest. I'm stuck with this reality that anything that you do has a certain consequence. Like, you can arrange the world any way you want. You just have to deal with the consequences of the way the world is arranged. There's no God forcing it. I wouldn't build it from the standpoint of what I would do to the world. I would build it from the standpoint of what do I want to take place in the world. Anything that you build, you're going to have certain consequences associated with it. Meaning there is no utopia. Your world is going to be governed by the level of technology that your society can get to. So it's like, what's the technological level of society? And based on that technological level, you have a certain standard of living that you can take place in regards to the carrying capacity of the planet. I would say the biggest idea would be to pay attention to the carrying capacity of the planet and the technological level of that planet, and make sure that each person on the world has each and everything that they have, that they need. And when I say that, I mean focus on build it from what you want to take place on the planet, if that makes sense. So for me, I focus on this kind of human element, this humanitarian part. So yeah, I want people to have the things that they need. I want a floor that we are, as a world, as we as a society, are willing to accept, meaning nobody falls below this particular floor, and that the planet itself will be honored, that human beings will be honored. Now, that's a little esoteric, because that gets a little, that's not specific in the least. If you're talking about you have to acknowledge that the world is a finite resource, and human beings are immensely important. And both of those things need to be codified and honored in any law that takes place. That's the first point. And build your society from that point. None of this hierarchical stuff, none of this stuff where people are just, and in fact, I would even say get rid of cash, but come up with a way of doing your society in a way that doesn't necessarily need cash. And the problem with any society that somebody comes up with is the transition from where you are now to how you get to where you want that world to be. And that's always the point of, okay, how do you do that? It's like, how do you get there? I would say stick a knife in the heart of banks. I would say try to get rid of the elites in your society. So yeah, worker co-ops is not a bad option for it. I would say have the government. We missed that opportunity, man. They had the opportunity to nationalize those banks when Obama went in office, and he had somewhat of a mandate where he could have pulled it off. I would have nationalized those banks. I would have turned some of those banks into community banks. Or made a separate bank for infrastructure in and of itself, meaning it's a public bank that works purely for the sake of infrastructure and everything else to make sure that that money get back into the society. There are things that you can do. There's just a failure of imagination for these guys to do it. Free school, of course, yes. Free healthcare, yes. And when I say free, I just mean the society itself says these are the things that we want to provide to each and every person in our society. It's not by God, man. It's just choice. It's choice. Saying, adding the whole world into it makes it a little bit difficult because you're talking about different societies and everything else. If we're talking about specifically in the United States, where you have this utopian vision of what you want to transition into or how you want to transition into it, having a government fund worker co-ops would be one big way. This idea of trying to get rid of the elites in the society itself, to look at this and say, part of the problem is the distinctions that we have in regards to our society between elites and everybody else. Eliminate this idea of the elites by getting rid of that part of the company, meaning you don't necessarily need those people running the companies. You have the employees themselves running the companies. That's the first point. The second point, yeah, healthcare, college, those things need to be funded by state in this way, or at the very least, there need to be public options for those things. You don't want a world limited in this sense. Like, think of all the people who are in this country who are in poverty. There may be immense potential and what those people can do. Like a human being doing french fries. Think of all the things that a human being could do, and you have that human being is turned into this tool doing french fries. Automate any and everything that has the capacity to be automated. That would be my big idea. That would be my big idea. Automate each and everything that has capacity to be automated, and come up with a system where you can make sure that each and every person can be subsidized through that automation and enriched by it. Meaning that automation is not going to the top 1%. That automation belongs to each and every person in this world, or each and every person in this country. Or at the very least, we reap the benefits from the fact that the automation exists. It's not where 1% of the population owns the majority of the automation, so everything needs to be paid for continuously in perpetuity, etc., etc., etc. No, make your world easier. Make your world better. Make your world better. Get rid of these plutocrats. Jeremy Chase, you would have to kill a lot of people, Jamal. You wouldn't give up that power without fighting. I agree. Yeah, you're stuck in a situation of either a revolt or trying to take it through political means. I would personally go through political means, but I think you can put it this way. I think you can get further than what I think you can get. I think the issue becomes making the argument. The argument is just never made. Like, you know, Noam Chomsky made this point of, you know, my point of view is not necessarily expressed to the American public. They don't even see it. It's invisible. The range they get is Pepsi and Coke. So yeah, that's the way the public thinks. But what happens when the public gets a taste of something different? In the case of Sanders, we see what happens when the public got a taste of something different. It's like, oh my God, I like this flavor. I don't know what this flavor is. What is it? Socialist? Socialist? Oh, I like that. I like that. I want more of that flavor. I want more of that flavor. So yeah. Yeah. Trump isn't going to do anything to minimize corporatism. No, he's not. That should be apparent. No, he is not. I don't know why anybody thought he was. Honestly, I don't. Bob, that's where you're wrong. The mentality looms large, but we're on the cusp of political realignment. And yes, Alice Mater, I agree with that. Potentially, I agree with that. Potentially. But that depends on who runs in 2020. This is like its infancy, let's say it that way. But yeah, the country is primed for something different. You have the Republicans that have stretched this country out of shape so much that the rebound is going to be fucking amazing. And you have Sanders, who's trying to work his way up back into the presidential alignment. You have other factions of dim enter who are trying to unrig the rules to some degree. 2018 and 2020 is going to be very interesting. That's all I'm saying. I think things are going to be a fucking war. I really do. I really do. Would you consider WikiLeaks to be a valid source of information? Yes, absolutely. In every political outlet missed humanity's biggest story, John Podesta. WikiLeaks is, man. WikiLeaks has never been proven to be wrong on anything. They've vetted that information over and over again, and they've been accurate each and every time in everything that they've put up. So yeah, WikiLeaks is fucking amazing. Absolutely amazing. To be a capitalist, you have to hold capital. Does Pelosi not realize most Democratic voters without remorse? No, because that's not her audience. Without remorse, she doesn't care. That's not her audience. That's not her audience. What is it? The majority of stocks, like 60% of the stocks are owned by like 1% of the population or something, some ridiculous number. No, Nancy Pelosi understands who funds her campaign and who pays her. So, no, she's not going to say anything that adversely affects her donors. Yeah, I know. Shirley Vick, yeah. Shirley Vick, yeah. Jamal, the Democrats won in Alabama by the skin of their teeth against a child predator. That is embarrassing. I know. Agreed. 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 Mark P. Social democracy is better even for the rich. The problem is that they've accepted their own bullshit. When money doesn't flow to the bottom, the entire economy produces less. Yes, yes, yes. That's true. That is immensely true. Good point, Mark P. That's true. Think about the situation where there's no money at the bottom to buy these people's goods. You fired that worker. You've put in a robot in this place. Those people can't buy your stuff. They don't have a job anymore. They can't buy your stuff. You are crippling your own economy in this way. They don't look at it that way. Trickle down. We want more. We want more. Just give us more. When money can circulate, more money flows to the top. You create this thing. The tax rate was 70%, I think, during JFK. They were doing perfectly well. They were doing perfectly well. There were no issues at all in a sense. They were making money hand over fist. So, yeah. Jamal, have you read the book, The Fourth Turning? I have not. Sir Bikes a lot. I have not. What is it called? A turning, the fourth turning. I check it out. Capitalism is like cancer. Yeah, capitalism is cancer. Agreed. Tabitha Enrique, state legislatures are dirty because no one has real oversight and not in spotlight like Congress. Line their pockets with legislation. I gotta be honest, I have no idea what takes place in the Virginia legislature. So yeah, I agree. It's like I don't pay attention to it as much. And I don't watch television. Like our TV just says like Netflix and stuff like that. We don't necessarily have the news and stuff plugged in. So I don't necessarily know what goes on in local news. I would have to explicitly look for that specific information. So yeah, Tabitha, I agree. All right. Lorms, I saw that. Okay, so the reporting this week about an IMF noticing inequality being a problem towards their continued prosperity. I saw that. I did see that. Bread and circus is right. If this tax bill passes, corporate tax will come down to 23%, or is it 20? I thought it was 23%. Get ready for greater economic income inequality. And just think, the tax rate used to be 70%. Under FDR, it had brought it all the way up to 98%. FDR proposition that it's like 100%. Everything over a certain amount, the government takes it all because we need to fund our programs. And they agreed in a compromise at like 90-something%. They've whittled that number all the way down to, what, 23%? Any gain that you make, you must understand this, any gain that you make, the capitalist class is going to try to claw back those gains the moment that you make those gains. This is not about integrity. This is not about being fair. This is about being winning. This is about winning. Anything that you make, you need to break their fingers. Stop this process where you're in this constant existential struggle. Your goal in this is to win. The legislation that you take, this is kind of my point when I'm saying you need something to represent labor outright. Your goal is to win. Not to have to continuously fight the struggle over and over and over again because these guys are these screaming plutocrats angry that they don't get more. You break their fingers. Meaning the legislation and policies that you take on need to have monstrous consequences in their regard in order to prevent them from being able to take back what you've won. Why do you need a new deal? I keep asking that question. Why do you need a new deal? Why do you need a new deal? Sir Bikesalat, the fourth turning explains the cycles of history and the changes that take place during this time. I disagree with the belief that we're going conservative, but he's right about the overall cycle. Yeah, I don't believe it's conservative. I believe it's the other way. I believe it's the other way. If Sanders had won that primary, Sanders would have been the president of the United States. We're not going conservative. I'm cautiously optimistic. Let me say it that way. Let me just say it that way. Bob Ramirez said, Roning is a budding career politician. Don't trust him. Jumped into Republican Party. Crozet Owls, Russia is all based on oil and other natural resources. India, maybe. But he feels like a total sellout, shill, a perfect politician. We need a president to declare a retroactive tax against the wealthy and corporations to recoup what has been stolen from us. Agreed. Agreed, Bob. Agreed, Brom. Agreed. For that, you need a president who is not beholden to that interest. So, all right, I'm going to end this here. Guys, thank you for coming back. Sorry the audio in the video. God damn it, that's annoying to me. I like to do it right the first time, and when I do it again, sometimes it never comes out exactly the way I liked it. But this one came out okay, I think. Yeah, guys, thanks for showing up. So, you guys have a good night. And everybody who's donated, you have no idea how much I appreciate it. It's immensely appreciated, so I appreciate it. Thank you. If you enjoy the content, of course, you can share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through either Super Chat at this point, since I do these all the time, or Twitter. Thanks, guys. Not Twitter, I'm sorry. Super Chat or Patreon. Jesus Christ. That's what Twitter. Yes. You can support through Twitter by tweets and everything else, but yeah, Patreon. Thanks, guys.